Hello.
We're up? Okay.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Val and Roy, and we're back to talk about casting molds, right?
Yep.
So we got these really nice casting molds from Creative Paradise. One's a starfish, and the other is a
I
really
will do
lovely.
this one.
You're going to do that one? Sweet. A
Seahorse.
seahorse.
They are cute. They're darn cute.
They're, you know,
Yeah, they
I tell you
really
the
are.
detail. I don't know how well that shows up on camera, but maybe we'll get some close-ups. Yeah, this is one that Daisy made that works here, right? And if you, she got an image offline about like a starfish, and this looks exactly like a starfish that we saw. So pretty cool.
So we're going to talk about and what was used for these was frit, right?
Yeah, these are just
Yeah.
Specifically, we use frit for these.
And one of the reasons why you would use frit and not just chunk up glass, because that's the way I do a lot of them, because it's a great way to use scrap glass, right? You know, so like Daisy did the color, you know, so the first layer is going to be frit with, you know, you putting it in specific areas to really get the top look that you want. And then I think at least what I do is then once I get that layered in there and the color designated where I need it, then I'll backfill with some scrap again or something like that.
Yeah, and then the other thing too, I guess we should talk about a little bit is that, again, you know, I'm sure it seems obvious, right, that these are casting molds. So unlike slumping molds, I mean, the material is pretty much the same, right, whatever the clay body is, but these are intended to be used with fusing temperatures, so hotter temperatures, right? So we're melting the glass, and again, you know, we find sometimes, especially I know you're talking about all the detail that's in there, the you know, finer frit or smaller frit seems to kind of make that a little bit better. I know for our project, you know, this one and this other seahorse, we use Yakagani frit, which is for us is something that's, you know, pretty new, right? We haven't had it that long. So if you're not familiar, you know, the nice folks at Yakagani that makes sheet glass, right? They also started making frit, and it's a 96, compatible with all the other 96 products that are out there. You know, you can see some of the jars on top. Again, if you're familiar with their sheet line, they don't have colors, you know, frit in all of it quite yet, but they do a large proportion of those. And again, a variety of sizes, right? From anywhere from powder to fine, medium, and coarse. What's nice is that the CPI, the Creative Paradise people, gave us a weight, you know, for like what we should use for these particular ones. And I know that for whatever reason, I remember the seahorse was like 260 grams. And so it makes it real easy when you're trying to just figure out like how much do you have to fill it. Surprisingly, Delphi sells a little scale.
Isn't that cute?
Isn't that so nice? Really kind of a nice unit. I mean, it's super easy, right? So you can just, you know, turn it on, set the mold on there.
Zero it out.
You can zero out the weight, right? And then then you can just start adding the glass until it gets to whatever desired amount, right? 260 grams is what they said. We fill it till it fills the whole till it's even with the top of the mold. And then we add a little extra like in the middle. So for this one, maybe down in here, you would add, you know, kind of pile it up so it's just a little higher than the mold.
So
this is a good one.
You can see that when it was filled, it was up to the line, right?
It's close.
Okay, but it is now.
It's below, I mean, you can see how it's
lower.
Much lower than what the mold is, right? And they put wire in a lot of them to hang them, right? Because people often ask, well, what do you do with these, right? I mean, after you make them, but so they put some wire so you can hang them up, you know, on a wall or in a window, depending on what you're doing. Yeah, what I'm noticing is what they used was a couple of different wires, right? So copper is always a good one. It's really friendly in the glass, right? You don't run into too many issues. So this is something that, again, something Delphi sells. You know, a 16 gauge, I would definitely at least recommend a 16 gauge. Nothing, if you're not familiar with gauges, the higher the number, the thinner the wire, right? So, you know.
You wouldn't recommend a thinner.
I wouldn't recommend thinner. So 18 or 20 gauge, I wouldn't recommend. But another type of wire you can use, which is, sometimes it really just goes by the term high temperature wire. It's a nickel chromium wire, which sometimes people call it nichrome. I hear people call it nichrome a lot of times. So nickel chromium wire. So high temperature, the advantage to it, it doesn't lose its shape at all when it gets hotter. more of a silvery color, if that makes any difference. So if you're not familiar, it was one reason why early on I was trying to mention that, that these are casting molds and not slumping molds, because you treat them differently when it comes to putting on some kind of separator, right? We always need something on the surface so the glass will come off easily, whether it's a slumping mold or a casting mold. The issue with casting molds is, since we're going hotter, we often don't use kiln wash. In fact, we don't recommend using kiln wash at all for these in particular.
Just for these.
So what we recommend is a product called boron nitride. We sell here at Delphi 3 different brands, and so we thought it was a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about the different brands. I do know that Creative Paradise recommends the Zip. They've had the best luck with that. You brought some other stuff though you wanted to show, right?
This little tool right here.
This is called a Frit Vac, right? And so you just turn it on. You hear that little, and you can just come in and pick up, anything that's spilled.
Do it from here and go that way.
Right, so you can see how this, or down in your mold. So if you got like that green somewhere you didn't want it, this just picks it up.
No, it's a
it's
neat
kind of
little
nice.
thing.
But if you're watching this later, I mean, you can always send us a message on Instagram, or you can email us on at Facebook at delphiglass.com. We will be back in some other day, probably a few weeks, right? We don't know.
A couple weeks? I don't know. Yeah.
I think we skipped for 4th of July, right?
Oh, so, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but anyways.
But we will return.
We shall return. So thanks.
Thanks,
for joining.
guys.